The story of Bobby Dunbar is one of the most perplexing and tragic cases of mistaken identity in American history. It all began on August 23, 1912, when the Dunbar family, residents of Opelousas, Louisiana, embarked on a fishing trip to Swayze Lake. Percy and Leslie Dunbar brought along their two young sons, 4-year-old Bobby and his younger brother Alonzo. The serene outing quickly turned into a nightmare when Bobby disappeared without a trace. Panic ensued, and the family, along with local authorities, launched an exhaustive search. The lake was dragged, and nearby woods were scoured, but no sign of Bobby was found. Fears grew that the boy had drowned, or worse, had been taken by someone with nefarious intentions. For months, the Dunbars lived in a state of despair, their hopes dwindling as time passed without any news of Bobby. Then, 8 months later, a glimmer of hope emerged. A boy matching Bobby's description was found in the custody of a handyman named William Walters in Mississippi. Walters, who was traveling with the child, claimed that the boy was Bruce Anderson, the illegitimate son of Julia Anderson, a woman who had entrusted him with her child's care. The Dunbars, however, believed the boy to be their missing son, Bobby, and traveled to Mississippi to identify him. The moment of reunion was fraught with tension and uncertainty. According to reports, Leslie Dunbar initially expressed doubt that the boy was her son, but after further inspection, she became convinced that he was indeed Bobby. The child was taken back to Louisiana, and Walters was arrested and charged with kidnapping. Julia Anderson, the woman who claimed to be the boy's mother, came forward to fight for custody. She insisted that the boy was her son, Bruce, and that she had willingly given him to Walters for a temporary period. However, the court ruled in favor of the Dunbars, and the boy was legally declared to be Bobby. The case seemed closed, but questions lingered. Julia Anderson's emotional testimony and her apparent sincerity led many to believe that a grave mistake had been made. Despite her efforts, she was unable to regain custody of the boy, who was raised as Bobby Dunbar, growing up in the Dunbar household and eventually having a family of his own. The story was passed down through generations, accepted as a tragic but resolved chapter in the Dunbar family history. Nearly a century later, in the early 2000s, Bobby Dunbar's granddaughter, Margaret Dunbar Cutright, began to investigate the family legend. Driven by a desire to understand the truth, she pored over old newspaper articles, court records, and family documents. Her search for answers culminated in a groundbreaking decision to conduct a DNA test. The results were shocking. The man who had lived his life as Bobby Dunbar was not biologically related to the Dunbar family. This revelation turned the century-old case on its head. The boy who had been returned to the Dunbars was likely Bruce Anderson, as Julia Anderson had claimed all those years ago. But if that was the case, what had happened to the real Bobby Dunbar? Had he perished in the lake that fateful day, or was he taken by someone and lost forever? The DNA results did more than just solve a familial mystery. They reignited public interest in a case that had long been considered closed. The implications of this case reach far beyond the families involved. It raises profound questions about memory, identity, and the fallibility of the human mind. How could so many people, including Bobby's own mother, be convinced that a child was their own when he was not? Was it the desperate hope of a grieving parent, or was there pressure from the authorities to quickly close the case? The case also casts a shadow on the justice system of the early 20th century. William Walters was convicted largely on circumstantial evidence and public sentiment, while Julia Anderson was dismissed as an unfit mother due to her social status and the stigma surrounding her illegitimate child. The trial was marked by bias and a rush to judgment, leaving little room for the complexities of the situation. As the years passed, the story of Bobby Dunbar faded into obscurity, known only to those with a keen interest in true crime. But the DNA revelation brought it back into the spotlight, leading to documentaries, books, and renewed discussions about the nature of identity and the consequences of judicial errors. It also reopened wounds for the descendants of Julia Anderson, who had long believed that they were denied their rightful family member. Today, the story of Bobby Dunbar stands as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in cases where the truth seems clear, there may be layers of complexity waiting to be uncovered. The mystery of what truly happened to the real Bobby Dunbar remains unsolved, leaving behind a legacy of uncertainty and the haunting question: who was the boy that lived his life as Bobby Dunbar, and what became of the child who vanished that day in 1912?